overall. The rest of it doing fairly well. Emily's got more information on your forecast right now.
I do. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, it's Tuesday. It is the 7th of April. We've got lots of active weather to let you know about. But first, take a look at this really cool shot. A volcano. This is in Chile, and you can see not only the smoke, but the ash involved in this. Quite an eruption. Temperatures today, they are going to be very similar to yesterday. We're getting up to about 6 degrees, but we have a system on the way that's going to be bringing us some really messy conditions. We've got the potential tomorrow morning and then through the afternoon for some freezing rain, some mixing. It's going to stay rain to the south for the most part and along the lakeshore because temperatures will just be too warm. But higher elevations and through the escarpment, Guelph, Orangeville, through Markham, up through Vaughan, that's where we have the potential to see not necessarily slippery road conditions, but ice accretion on power lines. That could be an issue. So this afternoon, we've got some rain staying to our south. Not a bad evening. Through the overnight, we stay quite clear. And then tomorrow morning is when this extended trough comes through the area, and that's when we have a good chance of seeing some mixed precipitation. Sticks around into the evening hours, and then on Thursday, brand new system coming in, but temperatures will be too warm for freezing rain. It'll just be falling as rain. More around the world in 60 seconds on our website. I'm Emily Vukovic. It is Tuesday, the 7th of April, and today is going to look very similar to yesterday, but tomorrow looks to be a bit of a mess. And I'm going to get to all those forecast details in just a few moments. Temperatures right now, well, we're not too bad. I mean, we're kind of hovering at or just slightly above, and in some cases slightly below the freezing mark. 9 in Newmarket and 8 in Oshawa. Keep in mind 9 is our seasonal, so we're a little off the mark, but not too bad. Take a look at this must-see video. See it erupting. Oh, and you can also see the ash if you look really, really closely. You can kind of see it falling down. Incredible, isn't it? It's kind of frightening. Okay, now, as we're talking about tomorrow's forecast, things could certainly get messy. We've got temperatures that are below freezing at the surface, and then we've got some warm air aloft. And when those two kind of hit each other, that is where we see that potential for some ice. Now, accretion is really something that is temperature dependent. So if we've got temperatures around the freezing mark, we've got little ice accretion, but -1 to -2, significant ice accretion. So really, that's all it takes is that temperature, that small temperature gradient. Tomorrow morning, we're looking at higher elevations, Guelph, Orangeville, even all the way over towards Oshawa. That's where we have the best chance of seeing some freezing drizzle, but we'll get into this a little bit more detail, including your evening commute and how it's going to be affected in just a moment. We'll take a look at Tom's traffic right now. Today, not a bad day. A little bit of rain to the south, but for the most part, relatively mild. We're looking at 6 degrees, a mix of sun and cloud, very similar to yesterday. Tomorrow morning, new system comes in. This one has the potential to bring us some freezing rain through higher elevations. Closer you are to the lake, the less chance you'll see of any kind of ice accretion. Throughout the evening, we've got that same story for higher elevation. And then on Thursday, new system pushes through. This one's going to bring with it a southwesterly wind, so temperatures are going to be warming up significantly. And by Friday, we're looking at a high of 15 degrees. Time now to dive deep into the forecast with your Long Ranger. I'm Emily Vukovic. It is Tuesday. It is the 7th of April, and we've got some pretty active weather on the way. We're going to start things off with a little bit of freezing rain for tomorrow morning's commute. So this is going to be kind of in between the hours of 7, 9 a.m. We could be seeing a little bit of freezing rain through the higher elevations through Guelph, Orangeville, up through Barrie. Looks as though the downtown core will stay mostly rain because freezing rain, as we all know, is very temperature dependent, and I'll get to that in a moment. By the afternoon, again, very similar areas through Guelph and in through Orangeville, up through Vaughan and in through Markham. That is where we could see not necessarily incredibly slippery road conditions, but power lines could certainly see a little bit of ice accretion on them, which we all know is bad news for that. Now, freezing rain potential is when we've got below freezing at the surface and warm air aloft. When those two get together, that is our chance for development of freezing rain. Now, surface temperatures have a lot to do with the fact that we may or may not see ice accretion. If we're looking at temperatures around the freezing mark, so 0, little accretion, because that's just too warm. But you drop it a degree or two, we're looking at -1 to -2. That could be the difference of significant ice accretion. So it's really temperature dependent. And when we always say to you, well, this could be happening in higher elevation areas, some people are like, well, I don't really know. Do I live in a higher elevation area? Believe it or not, Some people just don't know, and this is a good description of where we are seeing a higher elevation. So Orangeville down through Guelph, and then around the Oshawa area, through the escarpment, up through Bancroft. Those are areas that you'd have to be more concerned with. Now, believe it or not, because we're going to have such a wide temperature gradient, we do have a thunderstorm risk for the south throughout the day. Non-severe, very, very isolated. Rainfall amounts, we're looking at about 10 to 20 millimeters. So this is a good typical April rain event, which is good news because it's going to clean off all the streets and help the grass and everything. By Thursday, we've got milder air moving in. Temperatures are really going to be bumping up. And by Friday, we're looking at double digits, but it is going to be wet. Saturday, mostly cloudy with showers, but we'll see a little bit of sun. Thanks, Rachel. You can go to our website, theweathernetwork.com, for a full story on more details on our Alert Ready system. I'm Emily Vukovic. It is Tuesday. It is the 7th of April, and temperatures right now hovering around the freezing mark in many areas, so it's not too bad. Brantford, Hamilton, St. Catharines, everybody could see some isolated showers, and we'll talk about that in a moment. First, let's take a look at this must-see video. And you can see incredible plumes of smoke and ash just wafting from it erupting. I've never been that close to a volcano, and I don't hope to ever be that close to a volcano. We do have some active weather on the way, unfortunately. We've got the potential for some freezing rain tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. Reason being, this is how it forms. Okay, it's still early. The temperatures need to be below freezing at surface, and this normally happens when a warm front starts to come in and we've got cold air coming from the north, which is exactly what we have. We have an area of high pressure that's pushing all this cold air down. Temperatures that are going to be hovering around the freezing mark. It doesn't look as though we'll see a lot of ice accretion, but you drop that temperature gradient by 1 to 2 degrees, and that's where we can see significant ice accretion. For the morning hours, it's going to stretch anywhere from Hamilton up through Orangeville and through Barrie over towards Oshawa. For the afternoon hours, the band gets a little bit smaller. We're going to be seeing it more so through Guelph, Orangeville, and then even just a little bit north of the Oshawa area. We'll talk more about your long range, but first, here's Tom with traffic. Well, this afternoon, Hamilton through Niagara, St. Catharines could see a few isolated showers, but for the most part, we're okay through much of the GTA. Tomorrow, that's when things get messy. I showed you the risk of the ice, freezing rain potential in the morning and through the afternoon. By Thursday, temperatures warm up to about 8 degrees, so this new system that's coming in that's going to be a bit of a soaker for Thursday, Friday, and even into Saturday morning. We are going to be seeing much warmer temperatures. In fact, by Friday, getting up to a high of 15 degrees. Hi there, good morning. I'm Emily Vukovic. It is Tuesday, it is the 7th of April, and we're covering some active weather. We have the potential for some freezing rain throughout much of the GTA. This is for tomorrow morning. So tonight, conditions are still going to be quite clear. We could see some rain to the south, and then warm front moves in, and quite often that is when we do see that freezing rain potential because we still have cold air at the surface, warm air aloft. Guelph, Orangeville, Oshawa, up through Barrie. That's our best potential for tomorrow morning. And then as we get closer to the evening commute, we are going to be seeing it still in those higher elevation areas, Orangeville through Oshawa. Not to say that we won't see any freezing rain through Toronto, because we could, but the higher potential is going to be north of the city, kind of Markham, Vaughan. Here's a good explanation. There's that below freezing at surface. Temperatures are cold because we've got a lot of cold air coming in from the north. We've got an area of high pressure in place, and then we've got warm air aloft from the south, and that is why places like Hamilton could actually see an isolated thunderstorm throughout the late afternoon, evening. Surface temperatures have a lot to do with ice accretion. If we're sitting at 0, little ice accretion. But if we drop just by a degree or two to -1 to -2, that's where we could see significant ice accretion, because at 0, the ground's just too warm. It melts on impact. Elevation in Ontario, a lot of people say, okay, well, you're talking about, freezing rain being in higher elevations, but if you don't live in one of those areas, you may not know about them. But places like Orangeville, even in through Guelph, a little spot just north of Oshawa, that is where we talk about cooler temperatures, right? Because you're a little higher up. Thunderstorm risk for Hamilton, stretching down through London and Windsor. That's also for tomorrow because of that push of warm air. We're looking at about 10 to 20 millimeters of rain. It's a good April soaking. It's good for the grass. It's good to clean the streets. So I think a lot of this rain will be welcome, and temperatures are going to start to warm up by the end of the week, which is great news. By Thursday, we're looking at about 8 degrees. Friday, bumping up to about 17. And then for Saturday, we are going to be seeing some sunshine, and the showers will be tapering off early in the morning. Here's Tom with a quick traffic update. Well, we have some active weather in the forecast. Thanks for joining us. I'm Emily Vukovic. It is Tuesday. It is the 7th of April, and we've got a freezing rain potential for not only tomorrow morning, but tomorrow evening. We've got a system coming in from the south. The warm front associated with this is going to collide with sub-freezing temperatures at the surface, and that is where we're going to get this risk of some freezing rain through Barrie, Oshawa, through Orangeville, and through Guelph. South of that is where we find the freezing line, and that is going to stay all rain. So Guelph, Orangeville, and through Oshawa by your evening commute could be giving you a little bit of freezing drizzle. It's not going to be so much of an ice accretion event for the roads, but certainly power lines, anything that's below the freezing mark, ice could stick to. So your car, power lines, tree branches, that kind of thing, but not so much the road because it's just going to be too warm. 10 to 20 millimeters of rain is expected for the GTA, and because we've got such a temperature fluctuation, we've got warm air aloft, and that's going to bring in the risk for a few isolated non-severe thunderstorms to the south. Today, showers to the south through London, Hamilton, over towards Niagara Falls, but for Toronto and up through Barrie, we're looking at a fairly decent day. Tomorrow, in comes the warm front. There's that risk for potential freezing rain for the morning and through the evening. Temperatures are going to be warming up fairly significantly by Thursday, getting up to 8 degrees. New system coming in for Friday, giving us a lot of rain, but warm temperatures, a high of 17. Here's Tom now with an update on your commute. Thanks, Kevin. Well, temperatures yet this morning, they're hovering around that freezing mark, and it's going to be very similar tomorrow morning. We have the potential for some freezing rain. Just going to grab my clicker. Okay, so anywhere around Guelph, Orangeville, up through Barrie and through Oshawa, higher elevation, that is where we could see the potential. And through the evening commute, very similar areas, but the rain will start to push a little bit further north and a little bit further east. The formation of freezing rain really depends on a couple of things. It's usually associated with a warm front, which is what we have coming in. We've got below freezing temperatures at surface, and then we've got that warm air aloft. Surface temperatures have a lot to do with ice accretion. If we see temperatures hovering around the freezing mark, we'll see very little ice accretion, but you drop that by a couple of degrees and we're going to see the potential for significant ice accretion. Now, we talk about higher elevation all the time, and a lot of people wonder, well, do I live higher elevation, or who lives higher elevation? This is a really good map to describe that. So around Guelph and in through Orangeville, just north of through the Oshawa area, areas that are a little bit higher up have cooler temperatures. In contrast, we are going to be seeing warmer temperatures moving in with that warm air aloft, and that is why we have the potential for a few isolated non-severe thunderstorms by tomorrow afternoon. Rainfall amounts, we're looking at 10 to 20 millimeters, so this is going to be a good April soaking. And then finally, by Thursday, milder air is going to be moving in, and we are going to talk double-digit temperatures as we get closer to the weekend. By Friday, we're looking at 17 degrees. Here's Tom with a quick update on the roads. Hi there, good morning. Thanks for joining us here on the Weather Network. It's Tuesday. It is the 7th of April. I'm Emily Vukovic. Before we check in with Kevin Yard, let's take a quick look at this must-see video. A very cool but scary eruption in Chile, a volcano eruption. You can see the huge plumes of smoke, and if you look really, really closely, you can actually see the ash falling down the side of the mountain. All right, today temperatures hovering around the freezing mark this morning, but by this afternoon we'll warm up, very similar to yesterday. Kevin Yard is joining us downtown, and Kevin, in the long-range forecast, it looks as though spring has finally decided to show itself to us. Well, the radar's not looking too impressive, but we do have a little bit of mixing just north up through the Barrie area, a little bit through cottage country, and down towards the south we're seeing a little bit of rain. Tomorrow morning is going to be a bit of a messy commute because we have the potential for some freezing rain. We've got below freezing temperatures at the surface, we've got warm air aloft, and surface temperatures are certainly going to play a big factor into how much ice accretion we see. Now, it doesn't look like it's going to be a big event for the roadways, which is good news. The ground's just too warm, but for power lines, you may see some on your car. tree branches, that kind of thing. So around freezing, little accretion, but drop the temperature a couple of degrees and things could get a little bit dicey. Thank you for joining us. I'm Emily Vukovic. It's Tuesday. It is the 7th of April, and it's time now to look deep into your long-range forecast. Unfortunately, we do have some active weather on the way, and it involves freezing rain, which isn't great for people commuting or for power lines or for tree branches or for scraping ice off our car. A lot of those scenarios could play out tomorrow. We've got an area of low pressure that's going to be moving through, and the warm front associated with it is going to be bringing in quite a bit of moisture. We've got the potential for freezing rain through Guelph, Orangeville, up through Barrie and Oshawa, mostly higher elevation areas. The rest of the moisture is going to be falling as rain. Through your evening commute, we're looking at it through Guelph, Orangeville, just north of Toronto, so through Markham, through Vaughan, all the way through Uxbridge, off towards Oshawa, even over towards Cobourg and Kingston. That is where we do have the potential. Reason being, we've got below freezing temperatures at the surface. We've got warm air aloft, and surface temperatures really play into how much ice accretion we are going to see. Now, if temperatures are hovering around the freezing mark, little to none. If temperatures are hovering around -1 to -2, we could certainly see a significant amount of ice accretion. And it looks as though tomorrow temperatures will be hovering closer to the freezing mark, which means we may not see any ice accretion on roadways because they'll just be too warm, but more so tree branches, power lines. You may be scraping some off of your car. We talk about higher elevations a lot, and a lot of people ask us, well, what do you mean when you talk about higher elevations? Who are you talking about? Who's, in what area of southern Ontario? Well, Orangeville and Guelph, a little bit higher. So we're going to see colder temperatures. So that is why we see that risk through the higher elevations. In contrast, we've got warmer temperatures down towards the south, and with that warm air aloft, the potential is there for some isolated, non-severe thunderstorms throughout the afternoon. Rainfall amounts, we're looking at about 10 to 20 millimeters just along the lakeshore. That's a pretty typical April shower. It'll be good for the grass. It'll be good to clean the roads. Thursday, we've got milder air moving in. Could this be finally the beginning of spring? It could potentially be. We've got really mild temperatures for Friday. We're looking at a daytime high of 17 degrees. And by Saturday, well, the clouds will decrease. We'll see some sunshine, but cooler temperatures. Alert Ready is here for Canada. A world record Easter egg hunt, and no longer a super typhoon. This is News in a Minute. Alert Ready is here and for your benefit. A California nonprofit hoped to break a world record on Sunday by hosting the world's largest Easter egg hunt at the station. And lastly, no longer a super typhoon. Maysak is still a threat to the Philippines. It weakened to a tropical storm Sunday, according. Thanks for joining us here at the Weather Network. I'm Emily Vukovic. It is Tuesday. It is the 7th of April, and we're talking about the potential for freezing rain. It's not today, it's tomorrow, and we'll get into all those details in just a moment. But first, take a look at this must-see video. How neat is that? So cool. We've got the full story coming up later on today. Let's join Kevin Yard. He is in Toronto. Kevin, how did the temperatures feel this morning? Active weather for tomorrow. Right now, we're taking a look at the radar for today. We're seeing a little bit of mixing to our north, some showers to the south. That should taper off. We'll see a high of 6 degrees today. Mix of sun and cloud, very similar to yesterday. Tomorrow morning, because we're going to have below freezing temperatures at the surface and warm air aloft, it's a good setup for some freezing rain. Now, surface temperatures have a lot to do with ice accretion. If they're hovering around freezing, it means we'll see little to none ice accretion. But if temperatures drop a few degrees, -1 to -2, that is where we could see significant ice accretion. Higher elevation areas are more prone to the freezing rain tomorrow through Guelph, Orangeville, up through Barrie and through Oshawa, and tomorrow evening as well. So drive into work and drive home from work could be a little bit on the tricky side. In total, we're picking up about 10 to 20 millimeters of rain, and that's a good April soaking. Thanks so much, Kevin. We've got some rain on the way. We've also got the potential. There's some freezing rain on the way, which isn't great news if you're thinking, oh, really, freezing rain? It doesn't look like it's going to be too bad. It's really going to be temperature dependent. Total amounts of rainfall from now through Wednesday, we're looking at 10 to 20 millimeters of rain. The freezing rain potential is going to be through higher elevations, so we're looking through Barrie, through Oshawa, Orangeville, down towards Guelph. That's for the morning, and then for the afternoon in through the evening, we're we're looking at Guelph, Orangeville over towards the Oshawa area. Could be mixed in with a little bit of rain. Ice accretion isn't going to be a huge issue for roadways, but it might be for cars and for power lines. In contrast, because we have that warm air aloft, we do have the risk for some isolated thunderstorms down towards the south. Hamilton could see a rumble, maybe a couple strikes of lightning. For today, we've got showers to the south, but not a bad afternoon. We're looking at 6 degrees, a mix of sun and cloud, very similar to yesterday. And then tomorrow in comes the warm front. We've got surface temperatures below the freezing mark, that warm air aloft. It's a really good setup for some freezing rain. Now, by Thursday, temperatures are going to be warming up, and by Friday, yes, it's going to be wet, but we're seeing a high of 17 degrees. Here's Tom with a quick update on traffic. Well, we have some active weather in the forecast. Thanks for joining us. I'm Emily Vukovic. It is Tuesday. It is the 7th of April, and we've got a freezing rain potential for not only tomorrow morning, but tomorrow evening. We've got a system coming in from the south. A warm front associated with this is going to collide with sub-freezing temperatures at the surface, and that is where we're going to get this risk of some freezing rain through Barrie, Oshawa, through Orangeville, and through Guelph. South of that is where we find the freezing line, and that is going to stay all rain. So Guelph, Orangeville, and through Oshawa by your evening commute could be giving you a little bit of freezing drizzle. It's not going to be so much of an ice accretion event for the roads, but certainly power lines, anything that's below the freezing mark, ice could stick to. So your car, power lines, tree branches, that kind of thing, but not so much the road because it's just going to be too warm. 10 to 20 millimeters of rain is expected for the GTA, and because we've got such a temperature fluctuation, we've got warm air aloft, and that's going to bring in the risk for a few isolated non-severe thunderstorms to the south. Today, showers to the south through London, Hamilton over towards Niagara Falls, but for Toronto and up through Barrie, we're looking at a fairly decent day. Tomorrow, in comes the warm front. There's that risk for potential freezing rain from the morning and through the evening. Temperatures are going to be warming up fairly significantly by Thursday, getting up to 8 degrees. New system coming in for Friday, giving us a lot of rain, but warm temperatures, a high of 17. Here's Tom now with an update on your commute. Well, we're talking about active weather. We've got the potential for freezing rain on the way. We've got below freezing temperatures at the surface, warm air aloft, and that is going to bring us that risk throughout the day tomorrow. Now, surface temperatures have a lot to do with ice accretion. Around zero, well, little or no accretion, but -1 to -2, we can see significant accretion, and it all has to do with this freezing line. It's interesting, and I'll show you the contrast in just a few moments. We talk about higher elevation issues a lot, and this is a good map kind of showing who is in through higher elevation, who could see what. Freezing rain potential, Guelph, Orangeville, north of Oshawa. Thunderstorm risk. This is what I was talking about the freezing line. Anywhere south of that, we've got that warm air aloft. So that's where we have that risk to see a few isolated non-severe cells and about 10 to 20 millimeters of rain. Here's Tom with an update on your commute. Thanks so much for that, Rachel. I'm Emily Vukovic. It is Tuesday. It is the 7th of April. And as you can see outside our Oakville studios, it's a fairly gray and kind of gloomy start to the day. But we should be seeing a little bit of sunshine later on this afternoon through Kingston. Down towards the south, it's rain. Take a look at this must-see video. Literally looks like he's flying through the ocean. Incredible, isn't it? All right, let's check in with Kevin Yard. He joins us from downtown Toronto. And Kevin, what do the conditions feel like down there? Well, we've got a little bit of active weather on the way. We've got the potential for some freezing rain tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. We've got below freezing temperatures at the surface. We've got warm air aloft, and ice accretion is really going to be dependent on our temperatures. We've got temperatures that could be hovering around the freezing mark, and that's going to give us little to no ice accretion. But if we drop down to -1, -2, that's where we could see some significant slippery surfaces. Temperatures tomorrow are going to be ranging, but we will bump up by the end of the week. Very cool. You can check out more of those videos at our website, theweathernetwork.com. I'm Emily Vukovic. It is Tuesday. It is the 7th of April, and temperatures this morning, well, they're hovering around the freezing mark, a little bit warmer in some areas. Let's take a quick look at the radar. But for the most part, not a lot to talk about. We'll talk more about what's to come tomorrow in just a moment. But first, take a look at this must-see video. A Volcano in Pucón, Chile is one of South America's largest volcanoes. It last erupted in 2000. Because it has been so active for the last month, a lot of people from nearby villages have actually been evacuated, and well, you can see why. Kevin Yard is joining us downtown, and Kevin, conditions down there, you're not seeing any snow, are you? So we've got that warm air aloft, and the temperatures are really going to play with us when it comes to ice accretion. Around the freezing mark, doesn't look as though we'll see much, but anywhere a couple of degrees below, we're talking -1, -2, that is where we could see some significant ice accretion. We are going to be seeing higher elevations be impacted by this freezing rain more so than to the south. This is for the morning, this is for the afternoon, so Guelph, Orangeville, all the way over towards Oshawa. In total, we are looking at about 10 to 20 millimeters of rain. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, we do have the potential for active weather. We've got the risk of some freezing rain throughout the day tomorrow. Now, it's going to be mostly in the morning and then again in the afternoon, only through specific areas. We're looking at it mostly through higher elevation. So stretching from Guelph through Orangeville up through Barrie, Oshawa, even all the way west through Wyerton. By the afternoon, the band gets a little bit smaller. It's still going to be tricky for driving through Orangeville, through Guelph, over towards Oshawa. Now, I mean, it's not going to be a huge issue for the roads because temperatures are so warm at the surface, like literally on the pavement, that it looks as though it'll melt, but ice accretion can happen on anything that is below the freezing mark. So power lines, your car, tree branches, that kind of thing. We've got that below freezing temperature at the surface. We've got some warm air aloft, and ice accretion is really going to depend on our temperature. So if we're sitting at 0, little to no ice accretion. You drop 1 or 2 degrees, we're looking at significant ice accretion. And the freezing line, I'm just making note of it. Notice how it's down towards the south. Higher elevation areas certainly going to be seeing more impact from this through Orangeville, Guelph, just north of Oshawa. The reason why I made note of that freezing line is because anywhere below that freezing line is where we have the risk to see some isolated thunderstorms. Non-severe in nature. It's because we've got all that warm air aloft. 10 to 20 millimeters of rain expected with this system, and by Thursday, we warm up. Big push of warm air from the south. Temperatures, they're going to be hovering at around seasonal, and then they really warm up for Friday at 17 degrees. Here's Tom now with a quick update. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, if you see on the radar, we just have just a tiny little band just north of the city, so that's where Kevin's getting those few isolated flakes. Now, our conditions tomorrow, unfortunately, are going to deteriorate. We've got the potential for some freezing rain. Not necessarily going to be a big impact on traffic, but we could see some ice accretion on tree branches, power lines on your vehicle, through Guelph, Orangeville, over towards Oshawa, up through the Barrie area. That band kind of narrows out as we get to the afternoon in through the evening. Reason why we've got this risk of freezing rain? Well, we've got below freezing temperatures at the surface. We've got some warm air aloft. And notice where that freezing line is just for a moment. Surface temperatures are certainly going to play a big factor in whether or not we see ice accretion. Looks as though the city of Toronto could be just at the 0 mark, so little to no accretion, and then -1 to -2, that's where things change. That is where we could see some significant ice accretion, but it's going to be mostly in the higher elevation areas, so through Guelph, up through Orangeville, north of Oshawa. Remember when I said keep in mind where that freezing line is? Well, because we've got such a contrast in our temperatures and air masses, we could see some isolated thunderstorms down towards the southwest. Isolated, non-severe. Rainfall amounts, we're looking at about 10 to 20 millimeters, so a good April soaking. That'll help to clean the roads, water the lawns. Milder temperatures for Thursday with periods of rain, and then Friday looks incredible if you don't mind some wet weather. Temperature-wise, we're getting up into the high upper teens. We're looking at about 17 degrees for the city of Toronto. Saturday, certainly not the best day of the weekend because it is going to be a little cooler and breezy, but Sunday looks awesome. Here's Tom with an update. Thanks so much, Michelle. You can check out more of those videos at our website, theweathernetwork.com. I'm Emily Vukovic. Thanks for joining us on this Tuesday. It is the 7th of April. We're going to check in with Kevin in just a few moments, but first, let's take a look at this must-see video. The current is literally pushing him to dance along the ocean floor. How cool is that? All right, let's take a quick look at the radar before we check in with Kevin. He was just move out relatively quickly. We've got a little bit of rain to our south. Hamilton and through the Niagara region can see a little bit more rain later on today. But Kevin, let's just keep our fingers crossed that hopefully temperatures will warm up to that 6 degrees and we just might see some sunshine. The active weather potential for tomorrow is there because we've got kind of colliding air masses. We've got below freezing temperatures at the surface. We've got some warm air aloft, and that could bring in some freezing drizzle through higher elevations. Surface temperatures have a lot to do with ice accretion. If we're holding steady at 0, little to no accretion. -1, -2, however, we could see significant accretion. Orangeville, Guelph, Barrie, higher elevations, we're talking kind of Markham, Vaughan, North York, could seriously pick up a little bit of freezing rain, but for the most part down towards the lakeshore looks to be all rain. Now the band starts to get a little narrower as we move into the evening, and it looks as though 10 to 20 millimeters is expected for much of the GTA, which is good news. It is a good, decent April downpour. Hi there. Thanks for joining us here on the Weather Network. It is Tuesday. It is the 7th of April. I'm Emily Vukovic. We're going to be checking in with Kevin Yard. He joins us from downtown Toronto in just a few moments. But first, let's take a look at this must-see video. And the current is just pushing him along. How cool would that feel? I just don't think I could hold my breath for that long. All right, time to check in with Kevin. He joins us downtown. Kevin, how are the conditions? All right, thanks so much, Kevin. Yeah, our seasonal for this time of year is about 9. We're going to see a daytime high of 6 with a mix of sun and cloud. And it's going to fall in the form of freezing rain. We've got below freezing temperatures at the surface. We've got some warm air aloft from the south. Surface temperatures, they're really going to depend on how much ice accretion we see. If we're around the 0 mark, little ice accretion. But if we drop down by a couple of degrees, we're talking -1, -2. That is where we could see some significant ice accretion. Not so much for the roadways because temperatures, I mean, it's just too warm. But anywhere kind of power lines, your car, tree branches, that kind of thing could really be impacted. Through the morning hours, we're looking at it through higher elevation, Guelph stretching all the way up through Wyerton over to Barrie and in through Oshawa. For the evening hours, that turns mostly into rain, and we just see a smaller band moving in through Guelph, Orangeville, just north of Toronto and in through north of Oshawa. Now, you see this thunderstorm risk? Yeah, I know. We're thinking, wait a second, we can't be talking about freezing rain and thunderstorms at the same time. Well, we can because we do have that warm air aloft that's pushing in a lot of heat through the southwest. 10 to 20 millimeters of rain is expected throughout the day, and here's the thunderstorm risk. Now it stretches Hamilton south through London down towards Windsor. Very isolated, non-severe in nature. Today we do have the risk for showers, London, Hamilton, over towards Niagara and in through St. Catharines. Tomorrow in comes the warm front. There's that freezing rain risk. Morning and afternoon. By Thursday, temperatures are going to be warming up with a southerly flow with a brand new system, and by Friday, we're mild. We're looking at a daytime high of 17 degrees. Hi there. Thanks for joining us. I'm Emily Vukovic. It's Tuesday. It is the 7th of April, and I have to refer to that story. How incredible is that? Imagine feeling that weightlessness in the bottom of the ocean. I don't know about holding my breath for that long, but wow. Really spectacular stuff. Okay, on to our forecast. Things aren't looking great for tomorrow. We're in active weather because we've got the potential to see a little bit of freezing rain on the way. We've got it through Guelph, Orangeville, up through Barrie, and through Oshawa right now. Reason being, higher elevation, colder temperatures. And through your evening commute, we're looking at it, same areas, Orangeville, Guelph, Toronto, over towards Oshawa. Now, this is north of the city, so Markham through Vaughan, Uxbridge, those areas could certainly be impacted. Freezing rain is because we've got below freezing temperatures at the surface. We've got some warm air aloft. When those two work together, the setup is perfect. Surface temperatures around the freezing mark, little or no ice accretion, but if you drop those temperatures by a couple of degrees, by -1 to -2, that is where we could see significant ice accretion. Now, it's not so much going to be a problem for traffic in the roads because they're just too warm, but for power lines, for tree branches, for your vehicle, you might find yourself using your scraper. Higher elevation areas, a lot of people ask us about that. Here's a good map showing where is the highest, so Guelph and then through Orangeville and just north of Oshawa. In contrast, because we have that warm air aloft, we've got the potential to see some active weather to our south in the form of thunderstorms. Hamilton south through London down towards Windsor could see some convective activity. Rainfall amounts, we're looking at about 10 to 20 millimeters along the lake shore, less than 20 millimeters further north through Kitchener and Cambridge and Guelph and then through Waterloo. Milder air is going to be moving in through Thursday and a pretty decent soaking rain as well, and that's going to continue right through the day on Friday, but temperatures getting up to 17 degrees. By Saturday, we do cool down behind the cold front to a high of 10, but we'll see some decreasing clouds and some sunshine. I'm Emily Vukovic, and joining me, meteorologist Dr. Doug Gillum. About 2 seconds ago off here, he said to me, hey, Emily, you're going to really like that last pattern map that we're going to show you. So, Doug, get to it. Skip through all of the stuff that I'm not going to like and get to there.
Oh, I wish I could. All I can say is hang in there through the lousy weather we have in the short term. Spring weather trying to surge north. But what we have next week is not a brief warm-up. That's going to stick around a little bit.
Good.
But in the meantime, Thursday, periods of rain. It is milder, but don't confuse that with mild.
Okay.
We won't have to deal with the icing.
Says it, but don't believe it.
It'll be a few degrees warmer, so we don't have to worry about the freezing rain potential,
Right.
but a raw southeast wind off Lake Ontario. Then a brief warm-up on Friday. We'll have a mixture of sun and clouds, some showers early, maybe again late in the day. It'll be windy. Temperatures up into the mid-teens.
Yay, finally, some warmth.
Our fourth double-digit high of the year. It's nice that we can stay cooler and still double digits instead of
Okay.
snow.
Okay.
And this is what's coming for next week. Sunday
Yay.
looks great, so let's get to the details. Get
Okay.
a brisk wind. Saturday's not the nicest day this weekend. It'll
Okay.
be, like I said, a few degrees cooler, but Sunday, get
Yay.
outside and do whatever you've been putting off. Go for a walk. Light winds,
Okay.
temperatures approaching the mid-teens, colder
Oh, that's
along
wonderful.
the lake. Monday, windy, mild, showers move in late day, so opening day at home for the Jays.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Rain moves in during the evening, and some of this rain
So we're
continues.
thinking closed roof then.
Well, right, they've already said it'll be closed, and rain continues into Tuesday, and then here we go.
This is the map that I like.
Now, this won't be late summer, or summer-like weather, but very nice weather next week.